Hello fanatics. Welcome or welcome back to Diamond Painting Fanatics. I am Cindy, and as you may have guessed, I'm into diamond painting. I love diamond painting and placing the drills themselves, the pens, the trays, the storage containers, the kits, you name it. I'm all for it. Okay, but today's video, as you may have guessed, is a true crime. I am back in it. I'm going to upload every other Sunday. Okay, for now, that's what I'm going to do. If you're into true crime and you are into diamond painting, or even if you don't diamond paint but you're into true crime, whatever you do while listening, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. And let's get into today's true crime. Just before we begin, please do read the disclaimer that is on screen right now because of the topics we cover. With that said, who are we going to talk about today? Today I am working on Stars and Rainbows, this is called. It's a Selena Fennick artwork. It's in rounds, which has thrown me through a loop because I've been doing a lot of squares. But yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'll put the image on screen so you can see it. It's not the greatest picture, but that's what I'm working on. And today we have a depraved individual to discuss. Have you ever heard of Israel Keyes? That's who we're talking about today. He is American. He was actually born January 7th, 1978. And a year later, a couple of days, I was born. Oh my gosh. As always, I always like to begin with the early life. So we get a picture of them growing up and seeing where it all kind of went wrong. And we know it all went wrong because we're here today discussing it. Israel Keyes was born in Richmond, Utah on January 7th, 1978, and he was the second of 10 children of Heidi and Jeff, he was known as. So already that's got to be chaotic, okay? And it gets even more chaotic. His parents lived in Torrance, California, and were the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I don't know how many true crimes I have done where this church seems to be implicated in individuals that go on to do true crime. I'm not blaming the church necessarily. Not everyone that is a Latter-day Saint is a criminal, but there's a lot. There is a lot. And his father had served a church mission in Germany. Now, Israel and his siblings, so 10 of them, were homeschooled. I can't even imagine homeschooling Reese, let alone 10 kids. After leaving the Latter-day Saints church, Israel's dad moved the family to a remote plot of land north of Colville, Washington, in Stevens County, when Israel was just 5 years old. They were isolated from society. The family lived in a one-bedroom cabin without electricity or running water on Rocky Creek Road. Moving fast forward, when he was arrested, because they did catch him, spoiler, but when he was arrested, investigators and Israel's former commanding officer claimed that they suspected that his father may have abused him. And we find this, again, a lot in individuals that commit true crime. I don't want to pin it down to just, like, murder and stuff, because, you know, there's many crimes, but we often see abuse. In Colville, the family attended services at a church called the Ark, which, again, this poor child, at this point in time, went to a church called the Ark, which they kind of pushed the white supremacist Christian identity ideology. So from a very young age, he's in the Latter-day Saints, which I can't tell you what they preach, because, you know, and now this white supremacist, and this is all going towards forming his little brain. Do you see? Israel later described the Ark as practicing a lifestyle similar to that of the Amish, who are known to subscribe to a life devoid of all the conveniences of modern life. During this period of attending the Ark, their family befriended a neighbouring family of Chevy Kehoe. Now, Chevy Kehoe, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it. I'm not very good at all of this. He was later convicted for a 1996 triple murder. The Keys family eventually left the Ark for the Christian Israel Convent Church, which also subscribed to the white supremacy ideology. You know, and then even Israel later alleged that this church was more militia-like. For years, some of the siblings were forced to sleep in a tent due to the cabin's small size. They were also made to hunt for their own food, chop firewood, work on local farms to help support the family. Now, Israel was known to hunt, quote, anything with a heartbeat, end quote. And later freely admitted to telling his peers within the Christian Israel Convent Church that he skinned a live deer. As a result, he was ostracised by other children, with one girl recounting that Israel, quote, made her skin crawl. Or Israel, was 6'2" by the time he was 14. Admitted to shooting at his neighbours' houses with a BB gun, as well as starting fires in the woods. He also broke into houses with another youth who subsequently avoided Israel after witnessing him shoot an animal. Now again, we've got the trifecta, right? So I think bedwetting, arson and animals. I think that's trifecta. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure it is. And we're already hitting quite a few of those. and he's 14 now. Around this time, Israel's parents discovered a lot of guns he'd stolen from a neighbour, and the parents forced him to return the guns and apologise to the neighbour. And he also sold stolen guns to local residents, so they didn't find them all because he sold some. But again, and kudos to the parents for making him take them back and apologise. So the parents, to me, from this part, excusing the alleged abuse if that took place, seemed to be trying to do the right thing and teach him right from wrong, at least. They didn't pat him on the back and say, yeah, good job, like some. Also, around this time, his parents provided shelter to family friends, whose children, along with Israel's sister, witnessed him torturing a cat by tying it to a tree with parachute cord and shooting it with a .22 revolver, which he found greatly amusing. I just have a question. I know no one can answer this for me, but they're making their own children sleep in a tent, making them hunt for their own food. I don't know how old the children are, but at this point, like, even if it's before, but at this point in time, he's 14 years old. So they're sleeping in a tent, hunting their own food. They're providing shelter to family, friends. What do you mean you're providing shelter? Like, they're staying with you while all the kids are in the tent? Is that what you mean? Okay. Israel claimed that this incident with the cat led directly to his increasing need for isolation, as well as his desire to cover up or mask his antisocial behaviour. Again, another red flag. Keyes also stated that he felt, quote, different from his peers, and ultimately kept his antisocial behaviour to himself. Now, antisocial behaviour is sometimes called dissocial behaviours, and they are actions which are considered to violate the rights of or otherwise harm others by committing a crime or a nuisance, such as stealing, physical attack, or non-criminal behaviours such as lying and manipulation. It is considered to be disruptive to others in society, and this can be carried out in various ways, which include, not limited to, but include intentional aggression, as well as covert and overt hostility. Antisocial behaviour also develops through social interaction within the family and community, and it continuously affects a child's temperament, cognitive ability, and their involvement with negative peers, dramatically affecting children's cooperative problem-solving skills. Kind of makes sense, right? Because it fits him already. In addition, his mother began to notice, quote, some troubling signs in her son at this time, after he began tuning into various radio stations and different things. Not quite sure what she means by that. There's no sort of elaboration, if you know what I mean. But he's turning into specific radio stations and different things. So I'm guessing things that are, not exactly Heart FM and stuff like that. By his teenage years, Israel had become a skilled carpenter, building his first wooden cabin at the age of 16. He also worked for a Colville contractor from 1995 to 1997. See, isn't that awesome? He's built his own cabin. Now, I don't know if that cabin later becomes a house of horrors, but what a skill to be able to build your own cabin. You know, kudos there. Around this time, Israel started keeping a journal. Oh dear. That included biblical quotations where he documented daily sins he'd committed for which he felt shame, such as lusting after his girlfriend. Later, the family relocated to Maine, where they collected sap for maple syrup production in a mostly Amish community. Again, we're going back to that mindset that TVs and I can't even imagine having no cell phone these days. Like, it's just not going to happen, is it? Like, everything is on your phone, your emails and everything. So your bank, the games that we play on our phones, everything is just on there. Due to their mother's religious zealousness, the children were forced to hide from their parents to watch movies with friends and were forbidden to learn musical instruments, as she believed that doing so, quote, was against God. Sometime during this period, Israel renounced his Christian faith. Now, I can't say I blame him in this situation. If your mum is saying, no, you can't watch movies, no, you can't play musical instrument, like, what are you supposed to do? Israel declared his atheism, non-believing of God, to his parents, both whom he had previously made tireless and consistent efforts to please. After an intense argument, this led them to evict Israel for blasphemy. They then instructed his younger siblings, who looked up to Israel, to never have contact with him again. Then he went the other way. Israel went the other way, and he became interested in Satanism and planned, you know, like you do. You've been kicked out of your home. You've been told that your brothers and sisters, no, they're not allowed to contact you. So then he became interested in Satanism. Okay, that's fine. But then he began planning a ritualistic murder. Okay. So now we're moving into adulthood. In the summer of 1997 or 1998, Israel assaulted a teenage girl, estimated age of 14 to 18, who had been tubing with her friends. Okay, let me try to explain what this means, because it's kind of complicated. It's a bit like a rubber dinghy, you know, on the water. It's that, I think. So it's also known as inner tubing, bumper tubing, toe tubing, or kite tubing. It's a recreational activity where an individual rides on top of an inner tube, either on water, snow, or through the air. Okay? That's kind of what it is. But she had been doing that with her friends down a river in Oregon. and Israel admitted that he'd stalked her from a tree line before threatening the girl with a knife, and quote from Israel himself, he very violently sexually assaulted her. Originally planning to murder her as part of a satanic ritual, Israel let her go in the river tube he had abducted her from. Quote, "I was too timid. I wasn't violent enough. I made up my mind I was never gonna let that happen again." End quote. On April 22nd, 1998, Israel enlisted in the US Army in Albany, New York, under the Delayed Enlistment Program, reporting for basic training on July the 9th in 1998. He served as a specialist in Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Infantry, 25th Infantry Division. He passed a month-long preliminary course for Army Ranger training. He was stationed at Fort Lewis and Fort Hood, also spending time abroad. While stationed in Egypt, Israel befriended several soldiers, informing one of them that he would, quote, like to kill him. I bet he was like, "Thanks. Do you want to go grab a beer?" Like, what do you do with that information? While at Fort Lewis, Israel served on a mortar team. Former army friends of Israel have noted his quiet demeanour and habit of keeping to himself. On weekends, he was reported to drink heavily, consuming entire bottles of his favourite drink, Wild Turkey bourbon. In February 2001, Israel was arrested in Thurston County for driving under the influence. There was a plea agreement. He was fined $350. Israel was also a fan of the hip-hop duo Insane Clown Posse and displayed posters of the musical act in the barracks. Israel was awarded an Army Achievement Medal for his service as a gunner and assistant gunner from December 1998 to July 2001. He was then honourably discharged and relocated to Washington. For a period, Israel had lived in a reservation community on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. He had a Native American girlfriend named Tammy Hawkins, who he had met online in late 2000, and subsequently had a daughter named Lainey. Israel and Tammy, they broke up. And at the time of his arrest, he was dating a woman who worked as a nurse named Kimberly Anderson. Israel enjoyed watching violent movies and listening to heavy metal bands, often blaring their music through his truck speakers. Now, that's okay. I watch Sons of Anarchy, that's violent. Doesn't mean I'm going to go and do what Jax Teller did. And listening to heavy metal bands, I'm pretty sure a lot of people do. In 2007, Israel started a construction business in Alaska called Keys Construction. While working as a handyman, contractor, and construction worker, he was generally regarded as a skilled and trustworthy worker, but several female customers reported that he exhibited brief facial expressions or dark moods that made them feel uncomfortable. Around a year before his arrest, Israel and Kimberly broke up. Israel also had seasonal depression, even threatening to kill himself when his girlfriend had taken his whiskey from him. Yeah, I mean, okay, not for killing animals, not for telling his so-called friend that he wanted to kill him, but because she took his whiskey away. Okay. When he had also not shown up for work much during the winter season due to his seasonal depression. And I kind of get that. I think I kind of have the same thing, because like when it's cold and it's dark and, you know, a lot of people do have that, you know, leading up to Christmas and then your skin after Christmas. It's the whole thing, isn't it? Anyway, Israel also had ties to New York. He owned 10 acres, a dilapidated cabin in the town of Constable. Okay, did he do anything with that or not? Okay, criminal history. This is where we start getting into, the depravity side. Israel targeted random people all across the United States to avoid detection, planning for months before he committed a particular crime. He specifically frequented campgrounds and isolated locations. He claimed to only use guns, and he had to and preferred strangulation. This was due to the pleasure he derived from witnessing victims lose consciousness in the struggle. He claimed not to kill children or parents of children, primarily because of his daughter, whom he feared finding out about him and his crimes. However, police and FBI investigators were skeptical of this claim, suspected Israel of killing several teenagers and children. Israel did not admit to any murders during his 3 years in the United States Army. However, he did confess to attempting to rape a sex worker while on leave in Egypt, as well as a college student he met while on leave. He also confessed to committing bank robberies in New York and Texas. The FBI later confirmed that Israel robbed the Community Bank branch in Tupper Lake, New York in April 2009. He also told authorities that he burglarized a Texas home and set it on fire. An FBI report stated that Israel burglarized 20 to 30 homes across the United States and robbed several banks between 2001 and 2012. He also admitted to stalking multiple people in Anchorage and Texas, such as couples and women, and even 2 police officers at one point. He's quite clever. I don't want to use that word, but he knows what he's doing, and that becomes obvious. But Israel is also believed to have begun killing in 2001 following his discharge from the army. He has been held responsible for as many as 11 deaths in the United States. Now, unlike most serial killers, he did not have a victim profile. Now, victim or offender profiling, it's something to link the cases that may have been committed by the same person. He doesn't have a victim profile. He doesn't, they're not all, for example, they're not all white women with blonde hair. They're completely random. So the FBI will have trouble placing or connecting them. Okay? So, unless the MO is the same, which generally it is, it's going to be difficult for them to kind of pinpoint that. Completely random. So, his method was considered highly elusive. He would often fly into a city, rent a car, and then drive for however long it took to select a victim. And then he would go home to Alaska, leaving few traces that would connect his crimes. On his, quote, murder trips, he kept his mobile phone turned off and he paid in cash. So they can't ping his location. They think, oh, he might have done it. Let's ping his location. Oh, wait, there isn't any. His phone's turned off. And now he's paying cash. So other than the CCTV, which is more modernised now than it probably was back then, but, where do you even begin? And this is probably why he got away with so much. Confessed victims, okay? So during interviews with FBI agents and officials in Alaska, Israel Keyes directly admitted to 3 murders whose identities were confirmed. He confessed to murdering 49-year-old William Scott Courier and 55-year-old Lorraine, his wife, of Essex in Vermont. Keyes, Israel, broke into their home on the 8th of June 2011. He tied them up before driving them to an abandoned farmhouse where he shot Bill, and then he sexually assaulted Lorraine and then strangled her. Their bodies have never been found. 2 years prior, Keyes hid a, quote, murder kit. I'm sure we all know what a murder kit is. It's like a bag of essentials for a murder. The gloves and the rope and whatever preferences these people have for their murder kits. But 2 years prior, he hid this murder kit near their home, which he later recovered and used during the crime. After the murders, he moved most of the kit's contents to a new hiding place in Parrishville, New York, where they remained until after his arrest. Israel's last confirmed victim was 18-year-old Samantha. I can't pronounce her surname. I'll put her name on screen. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to try. don't want to disrespect. A coffee booth employee in Anchorage, Alaska. He kidnapped Samantha from her workplace on February the 1st, 2012, took her debit card and other property, raped and sodomized her before strangling her to death with a rope. He left her body in a shed in his backyard and went to New Orleans, where he departed on a pre-booked 2-week cruise with his family in the Gulf of Mexico. When he returned to Anchorage on February the 18th, necrophilia happened. He then removed her body from the shed, applied makeup to her. He forced her eyes open, and he took a picture of a 4-day-old issue of the Anchorage Daily News alongside her body, posed to appear that she was still alive. After demanding $30,000 in ransom, some of which was paid into her bank account, he then dismembered the body and disposed of it in a lake north of Anchorage. Her remains were recovered by FBI's underwater search and evidence response team. Now, there is a likely victim, not confirmed, but they associate this with him. Israel confessed to abducting a female on April the 9th, 2009, from a state on the East Coast, transporting her across multiple state lines and burying her in New York near Tupper Lake. Deborah Feldman, aged 48, disappeared from her apartment in Hackensaw, New Jersey on April the 8th, 2009. Israel's computer had been used to access an article about an unrelated woman named Deborah Feldman, and investigators theorized that he may have misspelled her first name. Oh, because it's Deborah, not... Okay, so he's typed in Deborah, where her name is Debra. So he's misspelled it, but it's, When shown a photo of Deborah, Israel paused for several seconds before saying, quote, "I don't want to talk about her yet," end quote. The FBI released a statement on November the 13th, 2013, saying that they believe Deborah may have been a victim of Israel Keyes. Possible victims. Keyes hinted at other murders and or was a suspect in other murders that coincided with his whereabouts or matched his MO. However, he was not definitively linked to these crimes, and some of the victim identities are uncertain. Julie Marie Harris, a 12-year-old Special Olympics medalist in skiing, disappeared on March the 2nd, 1996, while waiting for a ride to a local church in Colville, Washington. See, he's linked to Colville. He used to live there, didn't he? Was that in 1996? Her remains were found on April 26, 1997, in a wooded area a few miles away. A cause of death was not determined. Julie was a double amputee. Her prosthetic feet were found by the Colville River a month after her disappearance. He was then 18 and he lived in that area, there we go, at the time, and was questioned about her case after he was arrested in 2012, but he neither confirmed nor denied killing her, only saying that he had, quote, heard about that. Suzanne Gloria Lyall. On the night of March the 2nd, 1998, Susie, born April the 6th, 1978, an undergraduate at the State University of New York at Albany, left her job at a computer store in the Crossgates Mall in the nearby suburb of Westmere after the store had closed. She is believed to have taken a city bus from the mall back to the university's uptown campus, where classmates had said they saw her get off the bus at Collins Circle, a short walk from her dorm. She has not been seen since. The next morning, she was reported missing. That afternoon, her credit card was used at a nearby convenience store's ATM to withdraw $20. According to her boyfriend, only she and he knew the PIN. He had a verified alibi for the time of her disappearance, but due to his later refusal to cooperate with the police, they have been unable to completely rule him out as a suspect. It's hard, isn't it? Because Israel was determined never to leave a trace, even leaving his phone behind. Like, not to ping off, known locations. He was very, very careful. Why would he suddenly withdraw $20? Interesting. I'm not saying that he didn't or did, but that seems a bit suspicious. Giovanna Tyler, a 29-year-old woman from Tacoma, Washington, was reported missing in 2004. Media coverage has discussed her case among these potentially examined in connection with Isaiah Keys. Keys told investigators he had buried or submerged a victim in a lake in Washington between July and October 2001, and he said that he had disposed of other bodies in the state. Law enforcement reviewed unsolved cases in Washington for possible connections to these statements. He also admitted to investigators he had killed 5 people in Washington state and was the subject of an active investigation by the state police and FBI. Keys claimed to either have buried or submerged a victim in the lake in Washington between July and October 2001. A body was found, but this death was ruled accidental. He also confessed to the double homicide of a young couple which occurred between 2001 and 2005. You see, if he's confessing, why isn't he saying it was 2003? Why is there a between date? According to Israel, he killed the man via blunt force with a shovel and strangled the woman. He buried both of them between 2005 and 2006. Keys said he had killed 2 further victims separately. One was apparently dumped in Lake Crescent, Washington, Israel did not have a felony criminal record in Washington, although he had been stopped on 2 occasions for minor drinking-related offences. Authorities reviewed unsolved murder and missing person cases to determine which, if any, may have been the work of Israel Keyes. In 2012, authorities identified a possible victim known only as Lewis County Jane Doe, who was a woman found in Peterman Hill area in Morton, Washington on April the 7th, 2011 by a passing motorist. In 2022, the victim was formally identified, but her identity was not publicly revealed. Israel Keyes has been suggested as a suspect in a series of 2007 crimes by the Boca Killer, B-O-C-A, Boca Killer, who committed 3 known crimes associated in the town centre. It's in Florida. Boca, Florida. The first case in the murder series, that was Randy, who was 52, who was abducted from the town centre mall parking lot on March the 23rd, 2007. Within an hour, she had been shot dead and her body dumped at a nearby site. The second crime was the kidnapping of an unidentified woman and her toddler son from the same shopping mall parking lot on August the 7th, 2007. So 5 months later, they came back and took an unidentified woman and her toddler son. Though the kidnapper wore a mask and sunglasses, the victim caught glimpses of his face and described him as a tall, athletically built man with long hair, which generally matched Keyes' description. This woman was released unharmed after the assailant forced her to withdraw cash from an automated teller machine, an ATM. The third Boca case was the murder of Nancy, 47, and her 7-year-old daughter, Joey, who were found fatally shot in their vehicle at the same parking lot on December 12th, 2007. Israel Keyes has been suggested as a suspect in the murder of 58-year-old Jimmy Tidwell, an electrician who disappeared in Mount Enterprise, Texas on February 15th, 2012. He was last seen at 5:30 a.m. that day, after he had finished working the night shift. During a bank robbery, also in Texas, on February the 16th, 2012, the culprit, believed to be Israel Keyes, wore a white hard hat similar to Tidwell's. Jimmy's hair also resembled the long dark hair of the robbery suspect. When interrogated, Israel claimed this wig was in fact human hair. When asked where he had obtained the hair, Keyes said, "You don't have to buy real hair to get real hair." In a search of Israel's residence, they found dozens of books about murders, both fiction and non-fiction. Apparently, he read over and over again a 1995 thriller Intensity on several occasions, and he closely identified with the serial killer antagonist. Okay, he closely studied Mindhunter inside the FBI's elite serial crime unit by FBI profiler John E. Douglas. Just a side note, Mindhunter is on Netflix and it's awesome. I thought it was awesome. And then I missed it when it was done, because they could have carried it on, but they're not doing a third season at the moment anyway. So I bought the book and I sat and listened to the book. It's awesome. I really enjoyed that book. So yeah, side note anyway. Israel also undertook a meticulous study of other serial killers. He idolised, guess who? If you said Ted Bundy, you are correct. He felt that he shared many similarities with him. Both Keyes and Bundy were methodical and felt as though they possessed their victims, despite their difference in victim choice and MO. Israel went as far as imitating Bundy's court escape. I laugh because do you think they didn't learn from that? You're wrong. He was immediately seized by guards. Yeah, I think they learnt quite a lot and adapted practices because of what Bundy, all the escapes and everything else. He also admired and studied other serial killers, yet actively shunned media attention for his crimes, as he was fearful for his family and being labelled a copycat for his admiration of Bundy and other murderers. Dennis Rader, aka the BTK killer, we all know of him, right? Israel called him a wimp for apologising in court and showing remorse for his crimes, but expressed admiration for serial killers, quote, that haven't been caught, end quote. When asked in an interview about Alaska-based murderer Robert Hansen, Israel replied enthusiastically, stating, "Yeah, I know all about him. I probably know every single serial killer that's ever been written about. It's kind of a hobby of mine." When FBI agents informed him of the 2012 Aurora, Colorado shooting, he inquired as to the status of the shooter and had expressed mild interest in the perpetrator, James Holmes. Now, I'm just going to go on a side note here because Robert Hansen, known as the Butcher Baker, he was active in Anchorage, Alaska between 1972 and 83, so way before his time, abducting, raping and murdering at least 17 women. Oh God. I'll put a mugshot of him on screen. Ew. Creepy. He's creepy. Many of his victims were released by Hansen into the wilderness and hunted with a Ruger Mini 14 and hunting knives. He was captured in 1983, sentenced to 461 years imprisonment without the possibility of parole. I don't think parole would have mattered much on 461. I would have, if I was the judge, I would have said 461 years in prison, and you'll be eligible for parole after 100 of those. just to be funny. He died of natural causes at the age of 75 in 2014. Might have to cover this in a true crime. While serving a prison sentence for arson in the early 60s, Hansen was diagnosed with manic depression with periodic schizophrenic episodes. Anyway, let's get back to Israel, because oh my gosh, this man. After Samantha Koenig, you know, I mentioned her earlier. He demanded the ransom money. It was her. Police were able to track withdrawals from her account as he moved through the southwestern US. During this time, the police controversially refused to release surveillance video footage of her abduction. Israel was arrested by Texas Highway Patrol Corporal Brian Henry and Texas Ranger Stephen Rayburn in the parking lot of the Cotton Patch Cafe in Lufkin, Texas. What happened in Lufkin? I'm transported to a true crime I watched about Lufkin. Something happened there. I'm going to have to look that up. Yeah, he was arrested on the morning of March the 13th, 2012. Investigators had circulated a lookout bulletin for the suspect's car, which had been used at ATMs to withdraw money from Samantha's account. Israel came to their attention when law enforcement officers were monitoring hotel parking lots for out-of-state rental cars matching the police bulletin. Officers stopped him after he drove slightly over the speed limit. You need an excuse, right? You can't just... Sorry, I thought you was Israel Keys. You're not. On your way. You can't do that, can you? You need a reason. So he was slightly over the speed limit, and they searched his vehicle after they noticed cash stained with bright ink, indicating a die pack from a bank robbery. Samantha's ATM card and cell phone were also discovered in his car. Ding, ding, ding. Jackpot. He was subsequently extradited to Alaska, where he initially claimed that Samantha's ATM card and phone came into his possession. Oh my God, for someone who was so clever and elusive, not putting his phone on, flying, renting a car, driving, and getting out of town quick. He turned around and told these officers that someone tossed the items in my open car window. He was charged with fraud-related use of her bank accounts, but eventually confessed to the murder. He was represented by Rich Courtner, Federal Public Defender for Alaska. He was indicted, and his trial was scheduled to begin March 2013. While incarcerated, he spoke to state and federal investigators several times over a period of months. He initially cooperated to an extent, confessing to some of his crimes and stating a wish to be executed within a year. He also said that he wanted to avoid publicity due to the negative attention his young daughter and family might face. Law enforcement were able to corroborate much of his claims, and they believed that he was mostly accurate. but they also maintained suspicion that he might be misleading or lying in some statements. He largely stopped cooperating after his identity was discussed in the media. Israel voluntarily granted numerous interviews to investigators over several months. FBI Special Agent Jolene said law enforcement conducted more than 40 hours of interviews with him in the hopes of identifying additional victims and understanding the scope of his crimes. Israel at times engaged in conversational exchanges with agents during these interviews and was described as cooperative early on, but he declined to disclose full details about many of his alleged killings without assurances regarding sentencing. On Wednesday, May 23rd, 2012, he attempted to escape during a routine hearing using wood shavings from a pencil to pick his cuffs. US Marshals used a taser to subdue him. Separate from the Anchorage investigation, the FBI Houston Field Office released requests for information about his travel and activities in the Houston area, indicating that investigators were interested in his movements across multiple regions of the United States to determine additional crimes. FBI Public Timeline. In August 2013, the FBI released a public timeline of Israel Keyes' known travel and transactions and asked for information about his activities during periods when investigators believed he may have engaged in criminal activity. Maureen Callahan wrote that some investigative records were not publicly released and described Keyes as attempting to keep his crimes from media attention. Investigators noted that Keyes' use of cash, long-distance travel, and lack of victim selection patterns complicated efforts to link him to unsolved crimes. Federal and state agencies reviewed hundreds of missing persons and homicide cases, but stated that many potential connections could not be conclusively established. And that must be frustrating, because you just know there's so many more out there. In addition to press release and public timelines, the FBI has released selected investigative records related to Keyes through its FBI Vault program. These materials include interview summaries, evidence descriptions, and investigative memoranda used by federal agents in attempts to identify additional victims. Okay, so we know with the other crime he was hiding murder kits. The FBI reported that he had buried supplies in multiple locations for use in future crimes. The FBI stated it recovered 2, one in Eagle River, Alaska, and one near Blake's Falls River in New York, and they contained weapons and other items used to dispose of bodies. So he's disposing of them as well. Again, makes it even harder, right? The FBI said that Keyes indicated other buried weapons and money and items used to dispose of his victims. The FBI also reported that he admitted burying money and guns near Green River, Wyoming, and Port Angeles, Washington. The FBI stated the date for the Port Angeles was unknown. The FBI stated that he buried supplies including tools, weapons, money across the United States to aid in future crimes, and that they were part of a deliberate strategy to avoid detection. I mean, that's what I mean by planning, right? Because he hid one right near that home where he, with the murder of the husband and wife that he was convicted for, he hid it there 2 years before. So, like, you can't have a physical list, can you? Like, if your home was ever raided and they come across a list where it's like, I don't know, for example, the woods in Oregon, and it would just be really suspicious, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? The FBI reported that Israel travelled internationally, and that it was unknown whether he committed any homicides outside the United States. I'm sorry, but if he's travelling to other places, he's definitely doing homicide. He didn't keep them. I can't on the Gulf of. Well, he probably couldn't on the Gulf of Mexico with his family because he was on a family cruise. But let's just pretend he went on his own. He's not going to go there and think, I can't commit murder here. I'm in Mexico. Of course he was doing it while he was travelling. I reckon he was doing it in the army too, to a degree. In an FBI timeline release, law enforcement listed known periods of international travel, including British Columbia in 2005, April 2005, Belize, October 3rd, 2001 to 31st, 2005, Mexico, April and May 2007, and December, Christmas Day 2008, and his drive through Canada to Alaska, March 1st to the 9th, 2007. The FBI timeline noted that he lived in Washington from 2001 till March 2007, a period during which investigators believe he may have disposed of multiple bodies in that state. Okay, now this is the really annoying part. This is the really annoying part because if you don't know already, you're about to scream at me. I'm sorry. While being held in jail at the Anchorage Correctional Complex, Israel Keyes managed to conceal a razor blade in his cell. It's uncertain how he obtained the blade, as he was under security restrictions of using an electric razor under supervision. He died by suicide on the night of December 1st, 2012, by cutting his wrists and strangling himself with a rolled up bedsheet. A suicide note found under his body consisted of an ode to murder, but offered no clear clues about other possible victims. In 2020, the FBI released the drawings of 11 skulls and 1 pentagram, which had been drawn in blood and found underneath his bed after his suicide. Now, according to the FBI, the 11 skull drawings found in his jail cell interpreted as representing the total number of his homicide victims, and investigators stated that on several of those cases remained unidentified at the time of the drawing's release. One of the drawings included the phrase "We are one" written at the bottom. The FBI officially believes the number of skulls correlates with the total number of his victims. And there you go. I personally, I don't know, I think there's far more out there. But, you know, I'm not FBI, I'm just a girl on YouTube who loves true crime. But, oh, he took the coward's way out. He took the coward's way out. I know. I find it hard to believe that, how can I put this? I don't want to say he didn't love his daughter because he referenced her multiple times, but she was always going to find out, wasn't she? Do you know what I mean? If she was old enough to recognise Dad on TV, I obviously don't know that. I'm guessing she was because of the timeline, but there you go. Israel Keyes. Disgusting human being. Yeah, he really did think things through and burying all of these murder equipment. Like, oh my gosh. In an interview with the FBI, quote, "I've known since I was 14 that there were things that I thought were normal and okay, that no one else seemed to think were normal and okay. So that's when I just started being a loner. People found out about some of the stuff I did, like my parents and parents of other kids who would hang out with me. They would find out about some of the stuff I did, and that's when I just started doing stuff by myself exclusively." End quote. Referencing the cat, I think, but yeah. Oh my gosh. I think he had a messed up childhood, and you know, I can't excuse it. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you kind of relate sometimes to their backstories, you know, with abuse and the growing up and in difficult situations, but it's not an excuse, is it? At the same time, do you know what I mean? Anyway, there you go. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you not next Sunday but the Sunday after. Thank you for keeping me company. I hope you join me next time, and let me know your thoughts down below. Stay safe out there. Bye.